I get it. Love you. Alright. Chapter 18. Washington, D.C. Your conference call is ready on your private line, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Trixie. Hold, Mother calls. Philip Stang, Jr. pushed aside the speech he had been reading and reached across his expansive desk to tap the speaker button. His father had warned him that even with a secure line, using the speakerphone was a bad idea. But Dad was always overly cautious, a symptom of living through the Cold War. Dad, how you feeling? Tired, Junior. This doesn't get any easier as time goes on. At your age, I could transplant both kidneys at once and then go and play 18 holes. These days, one is my endurance limit. Phil could detect the drugs behind his father's voice, but the old man wasn't allowing them to muddle his thoughts. Good to know, for future reference. Is everyone else on the line? Attila said, yes. Vlad said, yes. Jack said, is everyone else on the line? Yes. Stang sighed at Jack's response. Of all the infamous killers to ever walk the planet, they had to clone one with an annoying speech impediment. Updates, gentlemen. What have you got for me in the way of clearing obstacles? Both Joan and Tom are in L.A. Together? Yeah, there's one for the history books. Am I to assume that your third attempt failed at as well? We hadn't expected them to be together. He was armed. A cop with a gun. Go figure. Why is it, Vlad, that your genetic predecessor was able to kill upwards of 100,000 people, and you can't stick a knife in some bitch without fucking it up? Vlad paused before answering. Phil could imagine his teeth clenched in rage at the insult. Of the three, Vlad scared Phil the most. Jack was a psycho. Attila was a thug. But Vlad was evil distilled. That's why he only messed with him over the phone. You can't get burned if you play with fire long distance. It won't happen again. That's what I want to hear. Attila, hold his hand if you need to. We have a schedule to keep here, gentlemen. These loose ends should have been tied up days ago. How are things on your end, Jack? How are things on your end, Jack? Fine. I should finish up later tonight. Albert is coming to Nebraska to finish Abe. I can get both at once. I like to hear this. Enough with the fooling around. I know you guys love that torture shit, but save it when we have. The key word here is fast. I'll consider the topic closed, unless you want to add anything, Dad. If it isn't done by tonight, it waits until after sunrise, and that is capitalized. That's our main objective. Phil nodded along with his father's words. Exactly. Are we all clear on that? Project Sunrise is the brass ring. What that means is back in the day in the carousel, the horses going up and down. They used to have a ribbon with a gold ring dangling on it. And if you were able to grab the ring, you won a prize. So it was like the ultimate prize. So to get the brass ring or get the gold ring is to say you get the ultimate prize. Project Sunrise is the brass ring here. I don't care if you've got one of your clones in your side squeezing the trigger. You drop that. You drop what you're doing and get on your planes by 10 tonight. Have you all had a chance to practice with the equipment? You can handle the assembly? Yes? He had tagged on the last word, so Jack didn't have to repeat the entire previous sentence, the dumb bastard. All responded positively. Good. It's already been shipped to your destinations, along with your passes and makeup kits. I want your arrival confirmations tomorrow by 8 a.m. We're going to show the whole world that the best of the best are made, not born. This is history, gentlemen. I'm proud that you're all a part of it. Dad? I do have something to add. We are doing more than altering history. We are creating a brave new world. Immortality is within our grasp. We will not be denied. Bill grinned. While he shared so many of his father's traits, he lacked his way with words. The old man quit, that was for sure. Get to it, gentlemen. Phil hit the disconnect button and leaned back in his leather chair. He swiveled and checked out the view. It was raining, cloudy. The Washington Monument stood out, cutting through the weather like a giant exclamation point. That's the one that's a giant spear, like with the or pier, spire, whatever, you know what I mean. The big stick with the little viewing pool. One day I'll have my own monument, Phil thought. And unlike all those other past suckers, this one will be built while I'm still alive. Maybe an image on a coin as well. Why revere the dead when they can't reap the benefits? Mr. Speaker, you're on line one. Ah, shit, he'd hung up on his old man. Dad? Sorry, got disconnected. If I wasn't banging that useless secretary, her ass would be out. I suppose vulgarity is inexorably intertwined with your generation, but you need to show me some respect. Of course. I just watched your speech to the Oversight Committee on National Affairs, Internal Affairs, and Criminal Justice. Ugh. Taped it off a C-SPAN. And you looked fat. What have I told you about keeping that body fit? My schedule's been a killer, Dad. I haven't had time to hit the gym. Bullshit. The irritation in his father's voice was pronounced. Spare me the busy crap. We're going to make the cover of Time magazine. You'd have us look like a bullfrog. Phil took a deep breath before answering. Government has changed since you've been in office, Dad. It's all about lunches. So eat a goddamn salad. This isn't a game, Junior. This is my dream. Our dream. Almost 40 years in the making. Why don't you give me a little credit here? I've worked my ass off as much as you have. I'm the youngest speaker ever elected to the House. Don't forget how that happened, dear Philip. Millions of dollars. My money. 60% of Congress financed their campaigns on my money. It was more than that, Dad. As chairman of the steering committee on bipartisan relations, I've been able to unite Republicans and Democrats on key issues like tax reforms, education. His father snorted. Spare me. That simpering middle-of-the-road attitude is about to change. This country doesn't need a social lubricant in office. It needs a strong, determined leader, one who stands by his ideals without bowing to special interest, or to voters for that matter. The president spends so much time trying to be popular, he forgets how to run the country. Other nations laugh at us, Junior. I know, Dad. He had heard the speech many times. Hopefully he wouldn't get started in on the Chinese. That's the whole point, to make being an American a source of pride once again. We're the protector of the free world. During the Cold War, we were feared. Now, every little camel jockey with an oil rig thinks they can flip us the bird without repercussion. Not to mention the biggest threat to humanity ever to exist, the communist Chinese, Dad. You're preaching to the converted here. We can never lose sight of it, Junior. Even with an unlimited supply of kidneys, neither of us will live forever. But our legacy can. I said that. We cannot live forever, but our legacy as Americans, kudos to your speechwriter, Junior. Speaking of which, have you got the speech for Thursday? I have it right in front of me. Phil picked up the packet and flipped back to the first page. It is in the times of greatest tragedy that we ourselves must also be great. I would prefer to hear it live. It's a good speech. Nice mix of outrage and strength. For what we've paid, it should be. There's even a spot in it where I get a little choked up. What? Cut that. Why, it's a great line. I stand here humbled at our loss. But no matter the blows this country takes, we will not be reduced to a nation in mourning. You're not gonna be humbled. Cut the line. But the people love this isn't about the people. The popularity contest is over. We are not out for approval ratings, Junior. Cut out any line that even hints at weakness. I also want you to lose the double chin in the next 2 days. That's impossible! Even if I starved myself. Good idea. Phil bit back his reply. He didn't kowtow to the old man, but he knew when to pick his battles. Consider the double chin gone. Excellent. I'm tired now, but we'll talk soon. Get some rest, Dad. Phil hung up and hit the intercom button. Trixie, who am I having dinner with tonight? Those execs from Philip Morris. Send them a rain check, then see if the commissary is still open, and find me a chef salad. Chicken. Dressing. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Phil picked up a pencil and began to go through the speech, trimming any signs of weakness. America has been asleep too long. He thought it was about to get a serious wake-up call.
Ooh, really, Lila? Oh, you're so loud. You're so loud, Lila.
Gallon's dog. Do I remember Lila?
Yeah. Woo, woo, woo. And cry?
We can't always get her to do it on command, but sometimes. Leaving that totally in. Chapter 19. Los Angeles. And then I followed you to your assistant's place, and you know the rest. Joan couldn't get her mind completely around it. Tom had told the story in a truthful, straightforward manner. He obviously believed it, and it did sort of explain their current situation. But Thomas Jefferson and Joan of Arc? This is a lot to swallow. The evening had gotten cooler, so Joan rolled up her window. She cursed herself for not grabbing a jacket when they had stopped at her house. She had assumed jeans and a sweater was enough. Santa Monica was built on the coast, and the cool ocean breeze could get downright bitter. I'm not doubting your sincerity, but the story is just so out there. I was cloned from the jawbone of a woman born 600 years ago? Well, technically you're an exact genetic copy rather than a clone. Oh, that makes it a lot easier to buy. Tom sighed and drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Joan could sense his frustration, but there wasn't much she could do. Even without hearing the long explanation, she didn't fully believe she was Joan of Arc. Tom was sincere as pie, but all delusional people were sincere. The writing thing did it for me. Having my writing be identical to Jefferson's. I read somewhere that even if you try to disguise your handwriting, such as write with your opposite hand, the experts can still tell it's you. It's a mental thing. I wish there was some way to prove it to you. Well, sometimes I do hear the voice of St. Michael. Tom gave her a sideways glance, and then smiled. That's a start. Do you like the French? Doesn't everyone? How do you like your steak? Burned? Ouch! A burned at the stake pun. You just lost points. Tom raised his eyebrows. Really? I had points? It was creeping up on dusk. The road became hard to see. Tom flipped on the headlights, then passed the car ahead of him, even though it was a no-passing zone. He was even more aggressive behind the wheel than she was. Joan didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. You know what's funny? The Joan of Arc movie came out a few years ago, and I turned down the script. I didn't like the character. Tom laughed. If it makes a difference, I like the character. The plucky Hollywood producer drawn into a web of conspiracy that tops her own movies? I think I'd call you spunky rather than plucky. Great. I'll pitch it to Reese Witherspoon. Go east on Wilshire. We're looking for 12th Street. Tom hung a left, and they were confronted by a stop light. The streets were filled with people walking, biking, blading, jogging, touristing. This was so pre-2020. The affluence of the surrounding shops and buildings was reflected by the populace in their clothing, their attitude. Tom and Joan stared at a mime on the street corner dressed in a hip tuxedo. Is that mime wearing Armani? Joan snorted. Last year's. The light changed and Tom hit the gas. I'm beginning to think California is one big resort. People come to LA for two reasons. To be a part of it or to get away from it. Why did you come? To get away. From? Hico, Nevada. I had a real apple pie upbringing, nice neighborhood, caring parents, perfect childhood. It sounds terrible. Joan laughed. It was nice, but without challenge. A little conflict can be a good thing, so I moved out of Mayberry and came to Hollywood. So you didn't arrive with dreams of making it big? Hell no. I arrived with dreams of poverty, struggle, and heartache. I wanted to test myself, see if I could survive. I was 21, got a job waiting tables, had a roommate who sold pot, spent a year throwing up in trendy clubs. Living your dream? Exactly. When did you go from outsider to insider? No one in this town does what they want. The businessmen want to write, the strippers want to act, writers and actors want to direct, the shop owners want to produce, and the waiters want to be Kevin Smith. I don't know who that is. I worked with a few of those waiters. They needed money to make an independent film. I was pretty good with people, so I was able to get the money together. That's all a producer does, basically. The movie was a hit? Hell no. Garbage. Didn't even get festival play, but it sold well on video. We made some money, brought in better talent. Next thing I knew, I was a hotshot producer, making big bank, hobnobbing with Tom Cruise. Short. He comes up to here. Joan put her hand next to her neck. Tom laughed. He had a good laugh, deep and genuine. Without doing it intentionally, Joan went through her dating rules. Tom wasn't in the business, and though he was attractive in a rough sort of way, he certainly wasn't a pretty boy. Fair skin meant no back hair, and she could tell he wasn't the Speedo type. Joan would bet her business he wore boxers, and the only tight-fitting things in his wardrobe were his socks. Here's 12th Street. Which way? North, I think. These are some nice houses. The copywriting business must be paying well. No kidding. Joan had priced the area before buying in Beverly Hills. Some parts of the neighborhood were out of her range. As they drove, the homes became less impressive, and soon enough they were in the $500,000 area. This should be the next one on this side. Tom pulled into a short driveway and parked next to a small freestanding garage. A gas lamp illuminated the front lawn, and a porch light was on. Should I bring the gun? Joan went to open the glove compartment. I've got mine. That should be enough. They got out of the car and rang the bell. The first thing that struck Joan about the man who answered the door was his hair. It had receded back to the crown of his head, a classic example of male pattern baldness. But sprouting out of his scalp, lined up like rows of black corn, were the worst hair plugs she had ever seen. It looked like someone had punched yak hair into his forehead with a fork. The second thing she noticed was that he bore an uncanny resemblance to Shakespeare. Too much to have been a coincidence. All I needed was one of those silly puffy collars. What? The man had a squeaky voice, and his expression was a picture of extreme irritation. Bill Masterson? It's my house, who'd you expect? I'm Detective Tom Mikowski. This is Joan de Villiers. We need to talk to you. Bill's eyes got big. The police? May we come in? I'm calling my lawyer. Bill tried to slam the door, but was unsuccessful. Tom's foot had gone in the way. Joan looked down and saw that there was still a tag on the shoes. After stopping at her house, they had hit a Kmart, as Tom didn't have a second pair with him. Remember, his shoes got stabbed and left in the hallway when she was all bloody. What the hell are you doing? Bill shoved at the door. Tom glanced both ways in a casual manner and then pushed his way in. We don't have time to screw around here, Bill. You're in serious danger. I want you to go. Now. We will, after you've heard our story. This is life or death. Bill scrunched his eyebrows and chewed his lip. In the foyer light, Joan could tell that the plugs were slightly darker than the rest of his hair. Whoever did that to him should be sued, and sued hard. Okay, but make it fast. I have stuff to do. Can we sit down somewhere? Bill led them to the living room, which was like stepping into a billboard. Everything had a corporate logo on it. Nike lamps and Coke clocks and Bud Light chairs and a camel card table and a big white couch that had McDonald's on the seat cushions. Plastered over every wall were ads, posters, banners, mock-ups, and packaging from hundreds of different products. Joan felt as if she were at a flea market. Bill shrugged. I get a lot of free stuff. Joan and Tom took the sofa. It seemed to be made of some kind of plastic. Sounds right for a sofa with McDonald's on it, right? You're in advertising, right? I'm a writer. Mostly catch lines. You know, like, you deserve a break today, or McDonald's. You wrote that? No, but I'm working on something for the Trojan people right now. Booming industry condoms. Lots of new markets opening up. I've got a great new tag. Bill held up his hands as they were appearing in the air in front of him. The way to a man's heart is through his fly. Trojan. Good, huh? It makes me want to run out and buy a pack. So what's this life or death thing? Bill asked. Tom laid out the bare bones of the story in the same way he had done in the car. Rather than being credulous or even interested, Bill spent most of the explanation fidgeting and looking at the clock. Here. Tom opened up his black binder and handed Bill a pad of paper and a pen. Write a few sentences. Because it's supposed to match Shakespeare's writing, it will. It sounds crazy, but you'll see. I think I'll get some coffee first. Either of you up for coffee? Sure. I'll take a cup. Bill got off the chair and left the living room. Tom turned to Joan. Was he following anything I said? It didn't seem like it. To be honest, I don't like him much. That's because he's a creep. But he sure does look like Shakespeare. Exactly, except for those hair plugs. Is that what they are? I thought he stapled a porcupine to his forehead. Joan put her hand over her mouth while she laughed. Isn't it bad? The color doesn't even match. Maybe he did it to himself. Do they sell kits? Joan got the image of the unpleasant little man sitting in front of a mirror, stapling hair to his own head. She laughed so hard she snorted. I assume you have a gun, Tom? Take it out and put it on the floor. Joan's laughter died in her throat. Bill had come back into the living room. Instead of coffee, he was holding a nickel-plated revolver. It was pointed in her face. She cast a frantic look at Tom, who seemed just as surprised as she did. I said take it out. Bill walked behind Joan and pressed the gun to her head. The experience was humbling. Her entire world became a small spot just above the nape of her neck, cold and hard. She could almost feel the direction the bullet would take, traveling up through her skull, exiting over her right ear. Tom reached into his jacket and took out the gun, holding it by the butt, and placed it on the floor. You're in on it. Tom's voice was even. No shit. You sure you're not the Einstein clone? Now, stand up, slowly. We're all going into the kitchen. Ooh, Shakespeare's a writer. They mentioned a writer. What's the reason? Tom asked. Money? You idiot. Of course it's not the money. The money is awesome, sure, but it's more than that. Now, move. Bill held Joan back, while Tom walked a few steps ahead. His free hand was around her neck, cupped under her chin. The fact that every thought in her head might be her last made her knees knock. It was worse than being attacked. Worse than finding the bugs in her house. It was even worse than getting shot at. Those people are horrible. Joan tried to keep the quiver out of her voice. Why would you be on their side? You have no idea what's happening, what they're going to do. I'm going to be a very important, very powerful man. Tom stopped walking forward and turned around slowly. How did you find out you were a clone? Stang came to me. I was having some legal trouble. They said I took some money from my own company. He helped me out, told me who I really was. He recognized my talent. Your talent? My writing talent. I'm Shakespeare, and I'm stuck doing crap ad copy. That's like using a hurricane to blow out a match. The gun shook against Joan's head. She closed her eyes and willed it to stop. So he kept you out of jail, and now you're his little suck boy? Bill took the gun off Joan and pointed it at Tom. The relief on Tom's voice told her that had been his intention. Brave bastard, that Tom. But was anyone in history braver than Joan of Arc? She found her voice, and when it came out, it was strong and true. Don't blame him, Tom. I mean, look at that hair. He couldn't have had a whole lot of love in his life, not without paying for it anyways. Bill jammed the gun back in Joan's temple, hitting her so hard she saw stars. You want to say that again? I'll say it. You pay for sex, Bill, because your head looks like a chia pet. The revolver went back to Tom, and then Bill began to laugh. Good try, guys. Get me all upset. But I'm not the big loser in this room. You're Thomas Jefferson, she's Joan of Arc. You should be ruling this country. But instead you're a dumb cop, and this one here makes stupid movies. I, for one, plan on fulfilling my destiny. By killing us? You make an omelet? Gotta break some eggs. Now move it. Open that door. Tom didn't move. Joan could see he was getting ready to try something. She shifted slightly so she could grab Bill's arm and toss him over her hip. When the gun went off, she yelped in surprise. Tom had crouched down, hands protecting his head. The shot had gone into the ceiling. Next one doesn't miss. Open the damn cellar door. Tom righted himself and complied. Empty your pockets. Tom removed his wallet, cell phone, and keys. Toss them on the table, then go down the stairs. The staircase was wooden, dark. Tom took 3 steps down and turned. Have you ever killed a man, Bill? Had another man's death on your hands? I get the reference, and I won't have a problem washing the blood off. He shoved Joan roughly through the doorway. She yelped, pitching head first down the stairs, but Tom caught her and held her steady. Besides, Bill said, I'm not the hands-on type. I'll give Attila and Vlad a call. They should have a lot more fun with that type of thing. Joan stared up at him. You should send them after the guy who did your hair plugs. Bill, sticks and stones. Then he slammed the door, engulfing them in darkness. Tom's hand found her shoulder. Are you okay? She was shaking, but she managed to answer. I'm okay. Check the door. Joan heard a creaking, a grunt. Locked. Solid, too. The door is heavy. Stand back. There was a loud thump, and then another. I think I broke my heel. We have to get out of here. Do you have any matches? A lighter? No. Joan led the way down the stairs, proceeding cautiously in the pitch black. It was cool and damp, and she got the impression of a small space rather than a big one. Her hand brushed something stringy and dry, a spider web. She wiped it off on her blouse. Reaching the floor, Joan inched forward, hands out in front of her, groping blindly for a wall. She hit one almost immediately. Her fingers felt wood, old and dusty, half-moon cuts. It's a wine cellar. Try to find windows, which are not in wine cellars because they want to keep them temperature, what's the word? Temperature stable and humid stable. I don't know. I don't know a lot about wine. I just know that their cellars do not have windows. She continued to feel her way around the small room. It was not only devoid of windows, but wine as well. Joan felt behind the wooden racks and touched cold concrete. This is just the perfect way to end a perfect day. I'm sorry I brought you here. You're kidding. This is my fault. I'm the one who found Shakespeare. You really believe he's Shakespeare? At this point, why not? And you want to know something? I always hated Shakespeare. Me too. His words echoed in the small enclosure and then faded. Joan shivered. Fear mounted with every passing second, as if the darkness was suffocating her. Keep a clear head, she told herself. Stay focused. Find your center. If you're going to go down swinging. Joan broke the silence. We should have rushed him. I saw the guy's eyes. He would have shot us. Isn't that a lot better than what's going to happen when Attila and Vlad show up? You're right. I should have done something. I could have done something too. I could have flipped him. It was a simple move any yellow belt could have executed. You had a gun to your head. And it scared me. Next time I won't be scared. If this was one of your movies, how would we get out? I would have written the scene so one of us has a weapon or a hairpin to pick the lock, or we find a closet and there's a backhoe in it. Maybe we can pull down some of these old racks, make a weapon. What's the chance of your friends somehow finding us? Nil. I spoke to Roy when his plane got in, but I haven't checked with him since. He doesn't even know about Shakespeare. Maybe they can figure it out later and avenge our deaths? That would work cinematically. Doesn't help us much, though. Tom got up. Joan listened to him shake the wine rack. Hold on, my knees are asleep. Ugh. It's well built, but let's give it a shot. Joan stood next to him, and they both grabbed a corner support. On three, they tugged, Joan putting her back into it, straining and groaning. The support creaked and abruptly gave way, the two of them falling on their bottoms. Joan weighed the little piece of wood in her hand. It was useless as a weapon. She sat with her back against the wall and hugged her knees, despair swallowing her up. We're going to die, she thought. The feeling multiplied within her, getting bigger and bigger until she found herself gasping. Tom bumped into her, touching her head, and then sat beside her. He put an arm around her shoulders and then hugged her tighter when she began to tremble. The first really nice guy she met in California, and he wasn't even from California. Joan thought about home. I'm surprised I haven't yawned yet. Getting ready to, though. Not about her house in Beverly Hills, but the small town she had grew up in. Joan had left to get away from the wholesomeness, but now she missed it so much she ached. For some reason, Tom reminded her of home. She pressed against him, resting her head against his neck. After a minute or two, she was able to get her breathing under control. I just had a pessimistic thought, Tom said. Share it. Brighten my spirits even more. Well, neither of us expected Shakespeare to be one of the bad guys, right? I was as shocked as the next girl. So, Roy and Bert are in Nebraska visiting Lincoln. I follow, but I really can't picture Lincoln as a bad guy. He's America's poster boy for decency and honesty. He's a used car salesman. Joan shivered. God help us all.